Hi everyone, welcome back, third time in a week to the Pro MMA Betting podcast. We're going to discuss Saturday's UFC card. As always, we're going to break it down from bottom to top. As we always do, we're just going to do a quick recap how we got on with the last UFC, which was on Wednesday, first midweek UFC we've had for many years. We had four pre-bets in total, but Marvin Vettori, who was our biggest bet on the card, we had a couple of units on him at minus 150. Unfortunately, that fight got cancelled, so that took us down to 3 bets. Really frustrating for me as someone that is providing tips to members when that happens, especially when it's my biggest bet on the card, my most confident, because it kind of removes any kind of cushion that you might establish. I mean, obviously Marvin could have lost, but I felt pretty strongly that he was going to win that fight. He was my most confident bet of any, so it's really frustrating when that happens, and it does happen on a more regular basis than you'd think. You do get a lot of cancellations in MMA, as we all know, on the day of or day before at weigh-in something happens. So that left us with, we had half a unit on Glover Teixeira at plus 160. I got plus 160, but day of the fight I added a little bit more as well, because on the Betfair exchange he was around plus 184. I got a little bit down, or a little bit matched at plus 188, so 2.88 in decimal, but most of it got matched at 2.84, so plus 184 if we're using American odds. So I couldn't help but add. I just thought, as I said on the podcast you would have listened to for Wednesday's show, I had it more as a 50-50, and I mean, it didn't look good after round 1, but he came through in fantastic fashion, so really happy with Glover there. We had a unit on Omar Morales, which cashed for us. Close fight. I was surprised a split decision wasn't there, to be honest. I think he had 1 30-27 and 2 29-28, so I thought he lost the first round quite clearly. And we also had one unit on the over in the Hernandez versus Dober fight. That pressure from Dober was something else. I was really impressed with him in that fight. He's definitely turned a massive corner as Drew Dober. And I think it was a minute into round 2, I grew extremely worried about the over, because you could see Hernandez was not coping well with that pressure. He was having to move a lot. In between rounds he was breathing pretty heavy, so I was pretty nervous going into round 2 about that bet, and Dober finished him off towards the end of the second round. So great performance from Dober. So we lost that one. So overall we was up about half a unit on the pre-bets. We had a very solid night on live betting. Let me just bring up the stats for you on live betting. We started the night off by nailing the very first fight of the night. We got a unit down at minus 162 on Sherman Villanueva not to go the distance after round 1. Very generous line. We also put a unit on Benitez against Morales after round 1. I recommended that to members that only live bet with me, or members who hadn't taken the tip and betted Morales. I just recommended a half a unit cover on our 1 unit Morales play if you had pre-bet him, because the line was plus 200. I thought that was off. I thought Benitez clearly won round 1, so I don't know why he had become a bigger underdog after winning the first round. I found it quite bizarre. So we lost a unit there, or members that hadn't taken the pre-bet lost a unit. Members that had pre-betted Morales lost half a unit. And then we managed to nail Andrei Arlovski at plus 400 after round 2. Absolutely crazy line. I got to admit, I thought Linz was going to win that fight going into round 3, but I couldn't ignore them odds. The books do that a lot on live betting. Keep an eye out for it, guys. They overvalue the fighter that wins. Well, I was going to say who wins round 2, but Linz didn't even win round 2. I just don't know where they got that line from. He clearly won round 1 for me. 30-27 scorecards were ridiculous for Arlovski. Linz clearly won round 1, but Arlovski, I mean, I haven't rewatched it, but I thought he took round 2, and I guess you could, but you can make an argument for Linz, but still, to be plus 400 when it wasn't a clear 2-0, absolutely crazy. So we cashed a couple of units profit there. I only tipped half a unit because I wasn't confident, and I did think Linz was going to take round 3 as well. I actually had a pre-bet on Arlovski. I publicly displayed these pre-bets on my Twitter account because I hadn't tipped them. I got Arlovski at plus 175. I didn't tip it because I felt that's where there was some value. By the time I'd bet it, the line had moved towards the plus 140, plus 135 territory where I thought the value had degraded, so I didn't tip it. Also had a bet on Michael Johnson, plus 130. I definitely would never bet that guy again. I said after his last fight against Stevie Ray, I would only consider him as an underdog. I got him as an underdog here. Put £1,000 on him at plus 130. As the week wore on, I started to doubt the play more and more just because it's Michael Johnson. And I did reduce it down to 500. And I said before the fight, I even said it in the chat to members, I said whatever happens in round 1, if Michael Johnson goes to minus 400 favourite, I'm going to cover my bet and I'm going to tip that we bet Moises. Even if he gets absolutely destroyed round 1, if we get a good line, we're taking it. What happened? Michael Johnson destroys him in round 1. I didn't cover my bet because I thought surely even Michael Johnson isn't messing this up. And I didn't give the live bet tip to members to bet Moises either because I just couldn't see how Michael could mess this up. And then round 2 starts and oh my god, I can't even, I mean, I know how frustrated I was watching that. I've got no idea how frustrated his corner must be and how frustrated he must personally be because he's a very talented guy, but how he done it again, I just don't know. So I lost half a unit there, and I also had a play on Ricky Simone or Ricky Simon, however you say his surname. Again, one I didn't tip. I was very public about having action on him though. I had £1,200 on him. I got minus 150, and that's where I felt I could only play him. I didn't feel I could tip him above minus 150. I told members I was on him, but the line just never retracted back to minus 150. I know there was a couple of books here and there that it did, but generally it didn't, so I just couldn't tip it. So I think quite a few members still tailed me on it, paying a bit more juice, but I just couldn't officially tip it unless it was minus 150. And he had a good first 2 rounds. I thought he was 2 rounds up. I don't think it should have gone to a split, but I haven't rewatched it. You are always a little bit biased when you've got money on a fighter watching it live, so I have to go back and watch, but I think all of the MMA media scored it 29-28, and he clearly lost the 3rd round. The fight played out exactly how I thought in the grappling sense, but I did not expect Ray Ball to look that good standing, especially in round 3. He came on real strong in round 3, definitely improved his hands. So personally, I had a solid night. Just going back to the live bets because I didn't actually finish them. We also got a unit on Ben Rothwell where it was evens on 365 is what I used to provide the tips, and that's what I tracked the odds based on. But BetOnline had plus 128, so I got on at 128, but he was plus 128, but he was tipped at evens. This was mid round 1, I think. I thought Rothwell would win this fight, but I thought that he would come on strong. I thought if anything, OSP would look good to begin with and slow down, but Rothwell was having success right off the bat, and OSP had his best round in round 3, bizarrely enough. This is the thing of this sport, it's so unpredictable. But I still scored it 29-28. I think I did give round 3 to OSP, but I don't see how one judge gave him round 2 just for landing a punch at the end of the round. He got completely dominated. That was dodgy judging. What I'd like to just remind everyone as well is I have been quite low key with some of these bets in the sense I haven't been putting as much money down as I normally would, not been tipping as many units as I normally would, because I wanted to see how these first 3 shows go in terms of how the fighters perform, not having proper training camps, how they're performing short notice, how they're performing due to everything going on in the world, and so far it seems to have had minimal impact. But one thing that I am conscious of that I actually thought about today is now there's a few fighters that have said they could hear the commentators during their fights. So how is this affecting the judging, I wonder? Now I've not gone back and thought about the actual fights that have gone to a decision and if we've had any dodgy decisions yet. I think on Wednesday we had some, I don't think there was any actual bad decisions, but there was a couple that I didn't feel were split decisions. But I wonder if the judges are hearing some of this commentary as well, and if it's swaying them. That's something to bear in mind. I'm really going to really follow this up on the card coming up tomorrow, just to see if there is a bias on commentary and if it is a close fight. Are we seeing any reflection in that in the judging? Now it will take a few events to probably see if there is anything there or not, but It's just something to bear in mind, that if the fighters are hearing the commentators, then are the judges, and in a close round is maybe something that one of the commentators is saying, is that swaying them? So it's something I'm going to bear in mind moving forward. We've got a 2-week break after this, so we've had 3 cards in very close proximity to one another. We are up about 8 units over the first 2 cards. Hopefully it'd be nice to get to double figures. If we could take a couple of units overall off this card on Saturday, that would be a nice start back into the UFC season, as it were. For signing up, guys, the website is prommmabetting.com. All the membership packages are available on there. Pretty much everyone signs up for 12 months. I always talk about my service being a long-term service. This is gambling, although I don't like using that term. We are gambling, but I do prefer to reference it as investing, because that's how I feel I treat it. I don't feel I am gambling in the sense that I'm just throwing crap at the wall and hoping it sticks. A lot of research goes into this. A lot of time is spent analysing fights. I really feel like I'm investing when I'm betting on a fighter. I say it all the time. I feel like they're a stock that I'm buying, and I will only bet that stock if I feel I'm buying at a good price. Much like the stock market, you don't want to buy high and end up losing your money. You want to buy low and sell high, and I always try and put my bets in when I feel there's value on the line. And I'm going to talk about probability in one moment, because I said I would on the last podcast. But the package for the year, guys, it's £195 for the year. If most of the members seem to bet £50 to £100 per unit, or dollars, whatever currency they use, you would have already covered your yearly just from one of the 2 shows, let alone both. And from both, you're sitting in healthy profit already. The service is remarkably cheap. If you're betting peanuts and your unit size is like $5 or so, then obviously it's going to be harder. But most guys seem to be 50 to 100, and they're getting bang for their buck. It's free money, guys. The live betting is the freest money you're ever likely to earn. American guys can use Bet Phoenix now. I know it's always been on and off for you guys with the live betting, but Bet Phoenix provides live betting. And I know even at the moment sites like, I think, Pinnacle and Bovada, which I don't think they normally, I don't have access to them, but I don't think they normally provide live betting. I think they are at the moment. Bet Online I'm using for live betting at the moment. It feels like the old days when I used to have Bet365 accounts. They have big limits. It's great. I'm having great fun using Bet Online to bet on fights. So it's a great opportunity, especially at the moment, to jump on the live betting, because so many people are making live betting accessible, so many books. So have a look into it. But if you are American, Bet Phoenix are one that before all this happened, they were providing live betting, and they seem to mirror Bet365's odds. All of our bets are tracked, guys. There's trackers, direct links to the trackers below this video. All the trackers are available on the website prommmabetting.com. We are making good money for our members. Last year, £100 per unit members won 14,500. This year's been a bit disrupted because of the layoff we had with like a couple of months off and whatnot, but everyone's in the green again. So it's a great opportunity to make money. But as I say, make sure you are reinvesting this money in whatever it may be, in a side venture, into the stock market, into index funds, into ETFs. Just make sure you're using the money, guys, to push yourselves forward. Don't give the money back to the books. And if you don't have an edge in other sports, don't bet other sports when they return. So many people are guilty of finding a sport they can make some money on, especially MMA, and just throwing the money back, betting another sport that they're not as clued up on. Stick to what you know, guys. Don't do it. Don't be tempted. Be really regimented with it. If you have to, say you're going to, obviously you do want to build your bankroll, so maybe say to yourself, right, 50% of my winnings from now on, I'm going to put it into an index fund, into an ETF, towards a side hustle I want to build. 50% I'll add to my bankroll. Just be wise with the money. You've got great opportunity, guys, to earn some additional income here and change your lives. Do not waste it on a load of crap. As I said last week, people are suckered in by materialism. Don't do it. You're not impressing anyone. No one gives a shit what you've got, guys. It's only in your head. Invest that money. Reinvest that money. So packages, as I said, they're available on the website. Keep an eye on Twitter. Sometimes I run a discount on the yearly. You just pay through PayPal. Twitter account is at Pro MMA Betting, and hopefully we can have another successful night. Third one in a week, and then we've got a couple of weeks off, which I don't actually mind because it has been full on. As much as I've missed the UFC, the 3 events in a week is pretty full on in terms of getting the tape in, getting the podcasts out, doing the live betting for the members. So I don't actually mind. It gives me a chance to get back on top of tape as well. The full card for the next show hasn't been announced yet. I'm hoping that comes out in the next few days because I like to have at least 2 weeks notice on a card, and I try and do a whole card in 1 week, so I'm 1 week ahead. So I'm hoping that card gets released shortly. Guys, just quickly on probability. Last week I spoke about betting on heavyweights at juiced odds, and I mean, it's always pretty much a pass, I said, but I said there was other things with Fabricio Verduma using it as an example that just meant it was a complete pass. So just some general rule of thumbs last week. This week, probability, some guys that are listening, you will know this, but I know there are some newer bettors. I get questions all the time. So when you're betting on a fight, guys, or when you're betting on anything, you're given odds because they are probability of someone winning, a team winning, whatever it may be. So we're going to use the fighting examples because that's what we're betting on and what this podcast is about. So you need to look at probability. So what I'd recommend is, if you are taping a fight, do your tape. After your tape, think to yourself, if these fought 10 times, how many times is X fighter going to win in my opinion? If you think they're going to win 8 times out of 10, if they fight 10 times, I think this guy wins, or this lady wins 8 times. Say the odds are minus 250. So American odds minus 250 equates in decimal to 1.4. So to work out the probability, guys, you always take 1, you divide it by the odds in decimal. This is the way I know to do it. So you do 1 divided by 1.4 times 100. And it comes out 71. So 7.1 times out of 10, this fighter is going to win according to the odds, but you think they win 8 times out of 10. So if you think they win 8 times out of 10, you're getting some value there on your bet, because you think they win 80% of the time. The odds are telling you that they only win 71% of the time. So there's value there. In a bet like that, there's some value. What you need to avoid is when it goes the other way and you think a fighter wins 8 times out of 10 and you work out the probability and the odds say that they're going to win, I don't know, let's just say 9 times out of 10 or 8.5 times out of 10. That's when there isn't value in the bet for you personally, because you don't think they win that many times if they face 10 times. So you need to look at the probability and see what the odds are saying and if they reflect that probability. So as I said, 1 divided by the odds in decimal. So if it's minus 250, that's 1.4 in decimal. You can use odds converter online. We'll do it for you. I have to use them still. I don't know all the differences between them off the top of my head. Sometimes I have to look. So just do 1 divided by the decimal, 1.4 in this case, times 100, and that gives you your percentage in terms of if they faced 10 or 100 times, whatever kind of way you want to play it. But you need to make sure you're getting value on the odds. If the odds, as I said, if the odds come out that the odds 9 times out of 10 and you think they win 8 times out of 10, there isn't value on that betting line. You have to look at that, guys. Probability. That is what betting is. It's based on probability. So always have a look at that when you're breaking down fights and you're looking at odds. Don't reach for a bet, even if you'd really like it, if you just don't think there's any value there. You have to think that there's value in the odds. So easy way to work out probability. Start using it. Start playing with it with every fight, and really quickly you'll pick it up and learn how to utilize it. So we're going to break down the card now, guys. I'll start from bottom to top as always. First fight on the card, we've got Rodrigo Nascimento taking on Don'Tale Mayes. Pass fight from a betting perspective. I don't need to do tape on this. I bet Nascimento on the Contender Series. There's very little tape, and funnily enough, the only tape available that I could find is someone trying to sacrifice throw on him and him getting on top and finishing, and his opponent on Contender Series done exactly the same. Now Nascimento is an American top team, but I've never seen his cardio, I've never seen his striking, I've never seen his takedowns. He seems to have a decent ground game. He got the quick submission on the Contender Series. That other fight where the guy tried the sacrifice throw, he quickly finished him. Took a mounted triangle, rolled to his back and finished it. He was fighting a complete bum though. You really can't read anything into that. But he seems to be a competent grappler. But I mean, that's about all I can take. It's just nothing on him. Mays, we've seen him on the Contender Series a few times. He seems to have improved gradually from that first fight with Alan Crowder where he looked terrible. We saw him last losing round 3 right at the end of the third round. He got heel hooked by Cyril Gain. So he seems to have made some improvements, but I just can't predict this fight, guys, because there's just a complete lack of tape for me. If you really had to bet it, I would say take the dog, but it's basically a pick'em, so you can't even do that. So I would just completely pass on this fight. I'm interested in the fight though, because hopefully it goes long and we get a good read on Rodrigo, because I just do not know what he's all about. The over is set at 1.5. Interesting. As I said, there's a lack of tape to go off, but Mays isn't someone that goes out and gets finished quickly. His takedown defence has improved somewhat. He's definitely improved from his first fight in the Contender Series, so maybe there's something in the over there. I think last time I looked it was around -125, so that's something maybe I'd consider. But in terms of betting a money line here, no, I'm not doing it. It's a pass fight for me. Next up, we've got Darren Elkins taking on Nate Landwehr. Not sure if I'm saying that right. This is one again that I didn't invest too much time in, guys, just because I just don't know where Darren Elkins is at. He's coming off the Volkanovski, the Ricardo Lamas and the Ryan Hall fight where he didn't look good in any of them. I mean, he got hurt by Ryan Hall a few times. I think the damage is starting to catch up with Elkins. He's 35 years of age now. Nate, I tried taping him for his UFC debut, and I just struggled to find too much tape on him. I mean, his takedown defence wasn't great from memory, but he's got a hell of an engine on him, and he keeps coming at you. So this is a very hard fight for me to call. Didn't really learn much from the Burns fight. He got taken out in the first round there. I mean, I think it just depends. It depends where Elkins is at. I know guys jumped on Elkins when he was the dog, and it's probably the right side because he's a proven commodity. Been in UFC a long time. He's a good fighter, as underwhelming as he looks physically. He's a solid fighter, solid wrestling, tough as old boots. But Nate's a dog, man. He's going to be in Elkins' face. Can Elkins just shut him down for 3 rounds? I don't know. I mean, for me personally, it's a pass fight. I think if I had to take a bet, I would. It's dog or pass for me now, just because I just don't know how much Elkins has left and where he's at. So personally, it's a giant pass. If I had to make a pick, because I just skipped the last one, so I don't want to skip another one, I will pick Nate just based on the odds. As I always say, guys, this podcast is different to all the others. I don't pick necessarily who I think wins. I will go with where I think there is value on the odds, and I don't fancy betting Darren Elkins at -130. He's the kind of guy you want to bet as an underdog, especially in his current plight where he may be on a steep decline. So I'm going to pick Nate here as the plus 110 underdog, but definitely not a confident pick. I don't know where Elkins is at, and I don't really have a great read on Nate either at the moment. But this could be an entertaining, scrappy fight because Nate brings it, Elkins brings it. Although he's got a wrestling heavy approach, there's normally entertainment value in Darren Elkins fights, because he's not normally someone that takes you down and kind of lays on you and just shuts you down. He's the kind of guy that has to constantly work in fights, so I think it'll be entertaining. But I'm going to pick Nate just because I think there's probably a little bit of value there, or perhaps there is if Elkins is falling off of a cliff, which I think he might be. So I'll go with Nate as the underdog. First fight on the ESPN prelims is Courtney Casey taking on Maria Bravella. Courtney Casey, she's actually dating Jotko close, so I was looking at her Instagram, as I am with everyone, just to try and get an idea as to their training situation. As I already mentioned, we haven't really seen much of an impact on the fight so far, which is very good from a betting perspective, because it could have proven to be a complete nightmare, but so far I think we're seeing minimal impact in performance. But yeah, she does live with close. I know they've got a makeshift gym in their garage. I think they've converted it just for current purposes, so you know she's going to be getting some kind of decent training in, because Close is a decent fighter. She is very difficult to trust from a betting perspective, just purely because her takedown defense is terrible. 8-7 record as well doesn't provide me with a great deal of confidence when I'm betting someone. She basically wins a fight and loses a fight. There's no kind of consistency there to her game. She hasn't been consistent since she's been in the UFC, but she does hit pretty hard for a woman. She's not very quick. She's a little bit lumbering, but her stand-up isn't bad. I mean, she's coming off that loss to Cynthia Calvillo. We've not seen Courtney for over a year now, and she got outstruck by Cynthia for 3 rounds basically. I mean, Cynthia didn't run away with it, but she won the fight. You know, clearly it wasn't a bad decision or anything. I don't know if Courtney's takedown defense has improved. Cynthia did go for a couple of takedowns, and she did stuff Cynthia's takedown attempts, but you go back and watch the Michelle Waterson fight, and Michelle's just hitting takedowns on her when she wants. Now, Courtney does have an active guard. She does throw up submission attempts, and you do see a lot of fighters do step out of her guard because they don't like being on top of her. I mean, when you watch the Cláudia Gadelha fight against Courtney Casey, Cláudia never really got overly comfortable on the ground with her. She is quite tricky, and she nearly caught Michelle Waterson in a number of submissions, and I think Courtney won that fight against Michelle Waterson. But yeah, her stand up, I don't know. I mean, she looked dangerous against Michelle Waterson standing. She has got power, but then you go and watch her fight, then, you know, she gets outstruck by Cynthia Calvillo. She gets outstruck by Felice Herrig in a fight where none of them really done anything. She put a beating on Jessica Aguilar, but kind of who doesn't at this stage of her career? So she's just a hard one to trust as a favourite, and she is a favourite here. I done tape, and she was sitting at -150. I think she's still at -150. There's not been much movement at all on this line. You've got to imagine against Barella. Barella's got a decent enough stand-up, but serious reservations about her chin. She got knocked out cold against Lauren Murphy, and her last fight against Montana De La Rosa, she got dropped by Montana. Not a good look at all. So I don't know where that chin is at. I mean, it's very rare in women's MMA that we talk about a lady having a cracked chin, but serious reservations about Barella's chin here. I had a look at her Instagram. I don't really know her full situation, because American Top Team is still open. I know they've changed the way they're providing training to their fighters, but they are running. But when you look at her Instagram, it looks like she's training on some jigsaw mats in her living room in an apartment. But I'm sure she must be getting some training in American Top Team. Yeah, I mean, she lost to Caitlin Chikagan in a close fight. Bizarre performance by Chikagan there. That fight seemed to wake Chikagan up, who now seems to sit down on her punches a lot more than she used to. She got a win over Talia Santos. She got taken down in round 1. She got up, took Santos down, won the round. Round 2, she was clinching a lot against the fence, probably enough to take the round. In round 3, she got soundly outstruck. Then she's coming off those losses to Lauren Murphy, where she got stopped in the 3rd round. She shot. Lauren Murphy took double underhooks, fired a knee. Bit of an old school kind of knockout that was. The last time I remember seeing something like that, I think, was, did Mark Kerr hit that on Rangers Stott or whatever his name was back at like UFC 12 or something? But long time since I've seen a knockout like that. And then, as I said, Montana De La Rosa dropped her in the 3rd round. So you do have to wonder about that chin, and Courtney does have good, or not good stand up, but she is fairly powerful. Barella will look for takedowns though. That's her kind of game plan normally. She'll normally try and dive into the clinch and take you down with a body lock, and she's not bad at it. But Courtney did fend off her last opponent, Cynthia Calvillo, when Calvillo done that. So I'm going to pick Courtney Casey here, but I don't think there's any value on the betting line. She's just not the kind of girl I can bet as a -1. I mean, she's kind of various books. She's anywhere from -150 up to -170, but no, generally speaking, -150 to -160. I just can't bet her as that big a favourite. What I am interested in, just as a stab, I'm not going big on it, but Casey KO is sitting at +850. I've seen worse bets. Don't go crazy on it. Keep it small, but she can crack, and Barella's chin's looking ropey. But I just see this fight playing out. I think Casey will land the bigger shots on the feet, so she'll have the edge standing. I think Barella will probably get some takedowns, but as I said, Casey isn't that easy to hold down. She's very active from her back. I just think what Casey does, if Casey can land the big shots that she was like landing on Michelle Walterson, I think that would just be enough to give her the decision. So I mean, I do favour the decision, but I just think +850. I think there's some value on that betting line, bearing in mind Barella's chin and Casey can crack. I haven't worked it out exactly, but I think the odds say that there's about a 11% chance that Casey would get a knockout at them odds. So I think if they fought 10 times, I think you could be looking at that happening on more than one occasion potentially. So I think there's a little bit of value there. Don't go big on it, but I think it's worth a stab when you just bear in mind how Barella's chin has looked in her last couple of fights. So I'm going to go with Casey here by a decision most likely, but I don't like the betting line, guys. I'd need, once I've done the tape, I thought I'd need, I don't know, -120, -130 to bet Casey. And the lines, I mean, it hasn't moved much, but what money has come in on Casey, so I don't think I'm going to get the price I want, but you know, you might get a good live bet out of it. Let's see how competitive round 1 is, so keep an eye on that fight for live bet. Next fight is Giga Chikadze. He was meant to be fighting Mike Davis. Mike's actually pulled out today or yesterday. I think he was having problems making the weight. I know he's had a long layoff. He had an injury. I think obviously he's put on some muscle because he doesn't look out of shape or anything. He looks in great condition, but he must have maybe put on a bit of size during the layoff, and he's struggling with a weight cut. So he's out. A new guy's come in called Irwin Rivera. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to look at tape. I looked at his record. Wasn't very impressive. I think he's the LFA bantamweight champ, so he's moving up in weight. Seems like a tall ask. So I'll take Giga here, but I imagine you're looking at a betting line of -400 or so, which I wouldn't do it, guys. This guy's coming in. It's his only chance of getting into the UFC, most likely. I mean, they might give him another fight after this anyway, but you know, you never know. He might come out here all guns blazing and catch Giga, but I wouldn't personally be adding him to parlays. It's not, you know, -400 favourite, which I'm assuming he's going to be, maybe even more once the money comes in. It's just a pass, but you have to take Giga, even though I'm going off of literally his record on paper. It just looks like a big step up it is a big step up for Irwin, and he's moving up in weight, so Giga for me. Next fight at middleweight, we've got Anthony Hernandez taking on Kevin Holland. Weigh-in's actually happening as I'm doing this, and Holland's weighed in at 182 pounds. Someone said he's apparently spoken about moving down to welterweight, which I think is interesting. If he can make the weight easily enough, and if he's weighing in at 182, then maybe he can. So that would be interesting maybe in the future, but he'd be a giant welterweight. But anyway, Anthony Hernandez, Kevin Holland. This I think will be a very entertaining fight. What I have learned from betting on Kevin Holland, I think I put a little bit of money on him against Gerald Meerschaert. I said I'd never bet that guy again. He's a talented guy. He's very comfortable fighting, which is something that a lot of fighters aren't. A lot of fighters leave their gym form in the gym and can't replicate it on the big stage. And Kevin Holland seems like someone who's just very comfortable in there. He's very relaxed, maybe a bit too relaxed, in fact. But he does have that relaxedness going for him, because there's not many guys that can go in there and be relaxed and calm and kind of enjoy the whole process. But if you can, it makes a big difference, because if you can perform better in the ring than you do in training, then that's a massive plus. But Kevin needs to find that middle ground, because he seems to just dick around too much in there, like he's trying to have too much fun, and that makes me think, I wonder if he's like, is he forcing it a little bit? I don't know, but I mean, he was doing it against someone like Thiago Santos, who was absolutely trying to kill him. So, but he needs to stop doing that, because as I said, he is a talented guy, but he could be on a 3-fight losing streak here. I thought he lost the Gerald Meerschaert fight. I bet Kevin Holland. I can't remember what I put on him. I think it was one I bet just before it started, and I thought he'd lost. I was really surprised to get the decision. The Chikadze fight, just, he got hurt at the end of round 1. I mean, it was a close fight, but you think that might have given the edge to Chikadze to get that round. Round 2, round 3 was probably his best round when he had one arm. Chikadze didn't take advantage, and then he's coming off the Brendan Allen fight, which very back and forth, scrambly type fight. And they've given Holland another kind of Brendan Allen here, another Gerald Meerschaert. They seem to like giving him these types of back and forth scramble fest fights, and they are entertaining. But Kevin just makes some mistakes in there. He's, like I said, he's messing around. He's too relaxed. He's too loose on the ground for me. He needs to tighten his game up. It's his MMA. It's not a grappling competition. And just, he does some basic errors against the fence. Like, I think it was the Brendan Allen fight where Brendan Allen had him in the clinch on the fence, and he was standing there with his legs together. It's like, you can't do that. Where's your base to prevent this takedown? Why aren't you splitting your stance? Just stuff like that. Just, it's really aggravating betting him, and he's another one, and he normally always gets overly juiced odds. The odds makers have caught on for this fight, but before this fight, he's always a heavy favourite for some bizarre reason. Because he's the kind of guy I can only bet as an underdog. I just cannot bet him as a favourite, because you know what he's going to do, and it's going to be really frustrating. And if you take him as an underdog, at least you can kind of accept it. But when you're betting someone like that as a big favourite, it's like you're nuts if you're doing it. So he's taken on Fluffy here, who I like Anthony Hernandez. I've seen his LFA fight against Brendan Allen. Now, Brendan Allen has improved. It was a couple of years ago, but I'm sure Hernandez has improved as well. Won a 5-round decision there, basically grappled Brendan Allen. I think it was 3 rounds to 2 that Hernandez won that fight, but the rounds that Hernandez won, he won them pretty dominantly. It was pretty solid performance. Came into the UFC, or the Dana White Contender Series, took out the Beverly Hills Ninja guy really quickly. And since then, he made his debut against Marcus Perez in a fight that I remember live betting Fluffy towards the end of the first round. I thought he was starting to take over. I can't remember the odds I got. It was maybe slight underdog odds. But yeah, I thought he was starting to take over that fight. But Perez caught him with that body kick, and he does look a little bit soft around the midsection, Hernandez. But he got caught with that body kick, and that was it. Game over. And then his last fight, he took on the Chinese fighter. My internet's running really slow. I can't see who it is at the minute. But I think it was Park, who's a very good boxer, got good hands. He hurt Hernandez a few times to the head, but Hernandez is a dog. He will, he won't stay at range. He will take a few shots to come in and close the distance, land his shots, get you against the fence and try and take you down. He's got very good cardio. He's got very good scrambler. Locked up a really nice submission against Young Park in a very high-paced fight. So I imagine in this fight, Hernandez is going to push a high pace. Holland is the better striker at range. Would he try and use those tools? I just don't know. I just don't know what to expect. But Hernandez will eat some fire to get inside. He throws some decent combinations once he gets inside. But his MO is then he'll try and take you down to the ground, and he pushes a very high pace. And I favour Hernandez here. He opened as the underdog. He was sitting as underdog for a little while. He is a slight favourite now on the books. I can see this being a very back and forth fight, but I just think I think Hernandez just has more structure to his game. Holland, as I said, I keep saying he just messes around in there. I think Hernandez is going to come after him. He's going to push a pace. He's a very good scrambler. As I said, he out-scrambled Brendan Allen, who just out-scrambled Kevin Holland. Now, Brendan Allen has improved, so I'm not saying Brendan Allen was the same fighter when he fought both of them, but you've got to think Anthony Hernandez has improved as well. And I just think over the 3 rounds, I think he will outwork and out-scramble Kevin Holland. Now, Hernandez needs to be careful he doesn't get his neck locked up in a choke. Holland has them long arms. Hernandez needs to be careful with his takedown entries that he doesn't get his neck locked up. But for me, I lean Anthony Hernandez here to get the decision win against Kevin Holland. And if you're a Holland backer, you're probably going to end up being frustrated on numerous occasions throughout the fight. So I'll go with Hernandez. He's a very slight favourite. You know, odds are probably fairly accurate now. Hernandez was the underdog. I thought there was a little bit of value in that, but now I'm not so sure. Matt Brown, Miguel Baeza next. Really hard fight to call, guys. I don't like betting old men. I know I live betted Ben Rothwell. I know I pre-betted Andrei Arlovski. And who was the other old man that I bet? Glover Teixeira, but I thought I was getting some value there on the odds, and so I was willing to take the age into consideration and still bet them. Matt Brown, a little bit different situation just because he kind of retired. He's had some concussion issues, serious concussion issues. I remember reading I think it was after the Cowboy fight now. His fights back, he's not really suffered much head trauma. He's had quite a good fight stylistically. He had the fight with Diego Sanchez. Then he fought Ben Saunders. He is 39 years of age. He's up there in age now. He's a welterweight. You know, he's had a lot of fights, 40 fights almost. You know, he is durable though, Matt Brown. He's only been knocked out twice. Once was that head kick from Donald Cerrone that put him away. The time before that was when he got caught to the body by Jake Ellenberger. Now, Matt Brown has had a history of being caught and hurt to the body. We have seen it in other fights. I remember Eryk Silva called him to the body as well and hurt him. Can't remember if there's been any others, but I think there may have been. But yeah, he does seem to have a little bit of a weakness to the body. Miguel Baeza, I mean, this is a step up in class for Miguel, but he's a lot younger. I think he's 27 years of age. He trains with MMA Masters team. He's got nice technical stand-up. I don't think he's quite busy enough, and he is hittable. You watch that Contender Series fight, he was getting hit a lot in that fight, and I mean, he probably would have lost the decision, but he dropped the guy in the second round in a round he was losing. He was getting outworked in. I didn't like how hittable he was in that fight, and he's coming off a win over Hector Aldana, who is not a UFC quality fighter. So, as you know, he looked decent enough in that fight, but that's just not high level competition. Matt Brown is a dog. He's a tough man. I think personally, now I haven't bet Matt Brown because the concussion issues, the retirement, coming back, 39 at welterweight. The other guys I spoke about were higher weight classes that I bet, and with the higher weight classes, you know, your reflexes and so forth, you don't rely on them as much as you do at the lighter weight classes. So age does matter more as you move down the weight classes. So, you know, there's a big 12-year age gap here. But I have to go with where I feel the value is, and for me personally, money's come in actually. I thought Baeza was still minus 200, but he's been bet down to minus 155 now, which, to be fair, it's probably fair. It's probably a fair line there. I was going to say I'd take Matt Brown in the plus 160 bracket, albeit not confidently, but I think I'm still going to pick Matt Brown because I have to go where I feel the value is. I wouldn't feel comfortable betting Baeza as a minus 150 favourite still, because didn't like that Contender Series fight, and then Hector Aldana, it's just hard to say. You know, Hector isn't a good fighter. So I will go with Matt Brown here. Just one more just brutal performance out of him where he can wear Miguel down, take it to him, and possibly take him out. So I'll go Matt Brand, but it's a hard fight to bet on, guys. I wouldn't go crazy on it. We don't know how good Miguel is, how much improvement he's made. We don't know how much Matt Brand has left. We haven't seen him in a tough attritional affair since he's come back. He's had 2 fairly comfortable wins. But I'll pick Matt Brand as the underdog, the grizzled veteran, and see if the dinosaurs keep roaring after Wednesday night. We move to the main card now. First fight on the main card, we've got Song Yadong taking on Marlon Vera. First thing to note, this fight is at featherweight. So Yadong, I think, made his UFC debut at featherweight. Marlon Vera, I don't think we've ever seen at featherweight before. Marlon, for me, has noticeably filled out his frame since first arriving in the UFC. He's a very big 135er now. He is very kick heavy. Hands are improving somewhat, but he's still very much a kicker. Can fight out of southpaw or orthodox stance, so that can create some problems. But first and foremost, he does like to let his legs go. Hands are more of an afterthought for him. He's very kick heavy, which I don't like it. Just in general, I don't like fighters that are kick heavy unless you're someone like a Wonder Boy or an Edson Barboza. But, you know, they're 2 very much out on their own in that respect in terms of the power they can deliver with the kicks, especially someone like Barboza and the way they can use them to manage distance. That, you know, Marlon Vera isn't on that kind of level in the stand-up realm, but he is very kick heavy. He's very tough. He's durable. You know, we saw him take John Lineker the distance. We saw the Andrade fight. Took a hefty beating in that fight at times and stood up to the punishment. He is very durable, but just that kick heavy game, it isn't for me. He's had some very favourable matchmaking. If you look at his last 5 fights, he's fought guys that, you know, there's a lot of fighters that would have paid good money, I'm sure, to have that run of 5 fights and to therefore build up a little bit of hype behind them. Wuji Buren, and I had Vera in a parlay in that fight, and he made me sweat. He dropped the first round. I think he was losing the first portion of round 2. Guido Canetti, I mean, he had some problems with Canetti. Canetti caught him early in the first round, had him in a bit of trouble. Frankie Sands, quick win, but I mean, Sands is shot to pieces. And then Noel and Hernandez, again, towards the end of the first round, after doing well, taking his back, he ended up in a bit of trouble, got taken down in round 2. And then he's coming off the Andre Ewell win, which is, Andre Ewell's the best opponent out of that bunch. Lost the first round, but he just wore Andre Ewell down, basically. He is very tough, as I said, Vera. He's got very good cardio. He'll keep coming. He will move forward. But he just kind of broke Ewell with a pace in that fight. But I mean, in general, to have 5 fights like that in a row, that's some pretty fortunate matchmaking, and I think maybe Vera's built up a little bit of a head of steam that perhaps he doesn't quite warrant, in my opinion. He isn't someone, for me, that is going to be a contender at any point. I just don't see it. I mean, it will be interesting to see him here because he's taken a step back up in competition. But last time we saw him take that step up, he suffered back-to-back losses against Lineker and Andrade. And he has improved, because I still remember like his fight with Davy Grant, where Davy Grant was just throwing him around. He's definitely improved. He puts in the time and effort, Vera. He trains at Colin Oyama's. I know he mixes some stuff in with Jason Perillo as well. He's definitely doing as much as he can to improve his game. But I just think there's a ceiling for him, especially with that kind of style he's got. But he is tough, so he's always there for 3 rounds. There's always a chance he can land one of his big knees or one of his head kicks. Yadong Song, very good boxing, very good athlete. He's had some cardio issues against Morales. He went to his wrestling in round 3 against Morales. I don't know why. He looked fine cardio-wise, but maybe he didn't. Maybe that's why he shot, was to try and get some rest. But they had a few minutes on the mat, and when they eventually got back to the feet, there was about a minute left in round 3, you could see he visibly looked a lot tighter, and he kind of got dragged into a bit of a brawl in the last minute. He still won the fight, 30-27, and he dominated the first 2 rounds. But that made me a little bit nervous, because I bet him against Cody Stamen, and I knew Stamen would offer a grappling threat of a much greater degree, and just that exchange with Morales in the grappling and seeing him tired did make me a little bit nervous. And we did see against Cody that he did slow down. I mean, he was looking very competent in terms of getting back to his feet the first couple of rounds, but by round 3 he'd just been worn down by Cody, and he just got dominated for the final round basically. On re-watching that fight, I do agree it was a draw. I thought Yadong won the first 2 rounds, but they were close. I wouldn't, I can't put up a massive argument if you gave one of them rounds to Cody, but I do think a draw was the right result. But here I just don't see any grappling threat from Vera. He's not a takedown kind of guy. I mean, against Hernandez, I think he caught a kick, and as he let go of it, Hernandez went down to all fours to get back up, and he quickly took his back. But generally I just see this fight playing out in my head on the feet. Yadong's got the sharper hands, he's very quick, he's very athletic. Personally, I think for Vera to win this fight, Yadong will need to really slow dramatically, and he'll have to really turn it on. He might even need a finish, Vera. He's not a round winner. You look, as I said, I went through his last 5 fights, and dropping rounds in all them fights against very mediocre opposition. He's not a round winner. He's just not consistent in that sense. So I think he's going to find that he might need a round 3 finish here, because I just think he's going to get boxed up for the first couple of rounds. If Vera comes out and wins this fight, I'll happily say I'm wrong about him, but I'm just not buying into him yet, just because of that run of opponents he's had. And the way he's beaten them, yeah, he's finished them all, but he's dropped rounds to them all. He's been caught by good shots from some of them. Canetti had him hurt. He's been taken down by them. I just have... again, he's a bit like a Kevin Holland in the sense that there's just no structure to his game. It's like he doesn't go out there with a solid game plan. And he needs that, because you have to win rounds if you want to, advance through the UFC. You can't finish everyone, especially once you step back up in level. You can't finish these guys. They're really tough to finish. You've only got 15 minutes. They're very good fighters, and if you can't win rounds and you're going to decision, you're not going to win fights. So I need to see some structure from him. So I have to go with Song here. I'm pretty high on Song, especially in a fight like this where I think it's going to play it on the feet. He's a dangerous man, fast, athletic. I'm a little bit worried about the camp situation, and therefore his cardio. But at 145, I've less of a weight cut. I think that probably helps his cardio. But we will see. The line currently, I think, is about -200. Which I'm not chomping at the bit. Well, no, he's kind of like -180 on average. Now, I haven't pulled the trigger myself, but I am very interested in the over here, because it's sitting at -120. The over is at over 2.5 rounds, which I think is very interesting. I mean, it's a featherweight fight, but they are bantamweight fighters. Vera is very durable, and Song, I think the only way he gets finished is if he just gasses, and it just Vera, kind of similar to the Andre Yule fight, but Andre Yule has a kind of history of gassing from striking matches. He slows down, and also Yule, Yule is, even though he's got a very long reach, he isn't someone that can really keep you at bay, whereas someone like Song Yadong is going to be firing bricks at him. He hits hard, so that might give Vera some reservation moving forward. I mean, we saw that in the Andrade fight, and someone like Andrade just, he throws one overhand at a time, whereas someone like Yadong will be firing in combination. So I do like that overline. I think -120. I was very surprised when I looked at that, because I didn't expect it to be that low. I don't think I actually thought in my head before I looked what I thought it would be, but I mean, now though, I would say I don't know. I think I was thinking it was going to be like -200. So I definitely like the over. But Yadong can crack. We saw the Perez fight, but Vera is very durable, and Vera, he can turn things on late, and round 3 could be interesting. But I have to go with the more structured fighter here in Yadong Song. So I'm going with Song, probably by a decision. Eryk Anders, Krzysztof, Jotko next. Easy pass fight for me on a betting front. It's one that I haven't even put much effort into tape-wise when I saw the lines. Jotko is a slight favourite, but I had a little bit of faith in Eryk Anders at one point. I thought he looked like a decent prospect, but man, I just don't know what's happened. Like the Gerald Meerschaert fight, he looked awful. Like I actually, just before the fight started, I threw a little bit of money on him, and my God, I think he was lucky to get that decision. He just looked awful. So I just don't know where he's at. Fight before that, that Moreira guy's not good at all. And then he had the awful beatdown of Khalil Roundtree, and then the Elias Theodoro fight. I mean, just a frustrating guy, Anders. I mean, based on them last 4 performances, I mean, even the Tim Williams fight, he made that look close. I mean, he got the knockout in the 3rd round, but without that knockout, he kind of... I mean, I thought he beat Machida, but he's still never really done enough. I think I've got to go Jotko, I don't trust Jotko's chin. Anders can crack, but I just have no faith in Eryk Anders at the moment. I definitely don't fancy betting Jotko at -145. He's not even... Bet online is -142, but all the other books now, a lot of them, we're talking -160. -150, which I've got no inclination to bet Jotko at them prices. The over got bet up as well. I was interested in that, but that's -200 now, so I'm not touching that. But yeah, I've got to pick Jotko here, but I don't like that betting line. But even though I always say I take where I feel there's value, I mean, Eryk Anders has just not looked good to me for a number of fights. Jotko, he's had a couple of fights back since he suffered them knockout losses, so he's probably built his confidence up a little bit, because I'm sure he was pretty shaky after them 3 losses, and the last 2 being KO losses. But I mean, that fight with Barry, or whatever his name is, was close. I remember I had a bit of action on Barry in that fight, and Barry really frustrated me in that fight. If I remember rightly, he just wasn't throwing enough, and it was like he could have taken that decision, but he just wasn't, or he kept going into the clinch. I can't remember now. I remember I was just really frustrated watching it. So I don't have any faith in either of these guys, so I'm not betting either. I'm going to go with Jotko just because Anders has looked so bad. I don't know what's happened to him. So I'll pick Jotko, but it's not a fight I want any part of. Next, we've got Dan Ige taking on Edson Barboza. Really looking forward to this fight. How is Barboza going to look at featherweight? We've just had the weigh-ins. He didn't look too bad. Is it going to affect his cardio? For me, is the main point in question here. He does slow down in fights. Edson cutting an extra 10 pounds here. How is that going to affect him? He has tremendous legs, very explosive, very powerful. I thought he deserved a nod over Paul Felder over in Abu Dhabi. I thought he nicked that fight. I was surprised Felder got it. I didn't have any action on it, but I remember when it went to decision, I was really expecting Barboza to get the nod, but he didn't. I thought he won the first 2 rounds. Thought he looked good standing. Even mixed in a takedown. So I went into that because I saw a lot of people liking Dan Ige before I take this one. And Dan Ige is the kind of guy you need to be very careful not to underestimate him. Now, I actually picked him against Bektic. I thought the way Bektic strikes, where he can't fight long, he gets involved in pocket exchanges, he hasn't got a great chin. I thought that would favour Ige on the feet. I didn't really know how the wrestling would play out. I think I picked Ige for that fight. I can't remember. I definitely didn't bet it. I know there was a lot of people that I talked to that were betting Bektic, but I definitely didn't want no part of it, because I don't think he's really a fighter, and I think Ige is. The guy's a hard man. So I went into tape just looking at solely pretty much at Ige's pressure. He's got a decent blast double. I don't think he's going to have much joy taking Barboza down. I think this is going to play out on the feet. And I didn't see the pressure I was expecting, going by all the people that I know that are on Ige here. I just didn't see it. I was counting in my head when Ego would be standing at range, and I'd be like, right, Barboza just landed a leg kick. Right, Barboza just landed a body kick. Right, Barboza just threw up a head kick. Right, Barboza just threw a spinning wheel kick. I just didn't see this pressure that I was expecting that everyone speaks about. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't offer any pressure at all. He is dangerous in the pocket. He's not got many knockouts on his record, but he does thump with that right hand. And I think he caught, I can't remember the guy's name now off the top of my head. Not his last fight, I think it was the fight before. The guy he fought, I can't remember his name, but he dropped him. I think it was with a really nice left hook counter. So he's got more power than his record suggests, and Barboza needs to be careful he doesn't run into one of them power right hands that Ige throws. But I can also see this being a one-sided beatdown on the feet. But I am nervous about Barboza moving down to 145 and his cardio. And there's also the chin aspect. Is it going to affect his chin? Now, I don't think Barboza's chinny, but I've always had in the back of my mind that it's not a granite chin either. I remember Donald Cerrone dropping him with a jab, for instance, and I remember there was a narrative going around that time that he might be a bit chinny, but he kind of seemed to dispel that myth. But he is cutting a lot of weight here. He is 34 years of age. I don't think long term, I don't think it's the answer for him. I think you'll find that he moves back to 155 pretty quickly. He might, I think he will get away with it here against Ige, but I just don't see the advantage for Barboza at 34 moving down to 145. I think if anything it will affect his cardio, so if someone can stand his face, he's going to get more tired. He's still going to be quicker than a lot of fighters at 145, but his speed advantages won't be as apparent at 145. He will still have the speed advantage here for me. But yeah, Barboza just needs to be careful. And he can get dragged into pocket exchanges sometimes as well with his hands. Like he loves throwing that left hook, and he is there to be countered by that right hand when he throws that left hook, because he throws it pretty well, and he's pretty effective with it, but he is there to be hit back. And Dan Ige is comfortable in the pocket. He's not one of these fighters that a lot of fighters aren't comfortable kind of exchanging in the pocket. He is. So Barboza needs to be careful if he doesn't slow down Ige, and Ige does come on strong and Barboza is slowing down. That tends to be when Barboza can get dragged into a bit of a fist fight. He will need to be very careful then. So, I can see the angle for Ige. I can see the potential cardio issue. I can see the pressure being applied from Ige, but I just don't see it initially. I only really see it if he senses Barboza's really starting to slow down. Ige has to be very careful here that he doesn't get brutalised with low kicks, and with someone like Barboza you can find yourself very, very quickly having your legs gone, no movement, you're sitting duck then. And also he's going to have head kicks coming at him like he's never seen before. Just the speed and ferocity that Barboza throws them. And I know the blueprint is there. There's a pressure Barboza, that's how you beat him. But I just didn't really see it from Dan Ige's fights. But as I've said, the weight cut is a concern. Could affect his cardio more. So if Ige can hang around and he's still mobile on his feet, it could play a factor. And also just cutting that extra 10 pounds with his chin, could that affect him? And as I said, as he gets tired he can get dragged into brawls. And also with Barboza, he has lost 4 of his last 5, even though I think he bet Felder. So there is that, of course he fought Khabib, he fought Kevin Lee, completely different stylistic matchups. And as I said, I thought he beat Felder, so I don't want to read too much into that either. But there are some uncertainties there. But I can't go big on Barboza here because of the question marks. But like at the minute at BetOnline, he's like -123, and I wouldn't be shocked if Barboza comes out here and looks a much bigger favourite and does a demolition job. But there are question marks, and rightful question marks, which stop me going big. I need to see him at 145 first, but I do think as long as he isn't too jeopardised by the weight cut, I do think this is a good fight for him. But it's going to be very interesting to see how he looks at 145. I just don't think Ige has that type of pressure, and while he's dangerous in the pocket, I don't think his striking is great either. He's just someone that will move forward. He's comfortable exchanging in the pocket, but Barboza's going to be firing those legs, man. And since he's moved to American Top Team against Felder, he was firing that calf kick. So I would not like to be being calf kicked by Edson Barboza. That could, a few of them, Ige could be done. Paul Felder's just a different breed. He just took them, but someone like Ige could find he's quickly jeopardised. So I'm going to go with Barboza here. And I think there is a bit of value on the money line still. But I wouldn't go crazy big on it, guys, just because I do have question marks. And I do get why people would like Ige here. But me personally, when I break it down in my head, why I think Ige can win this fight, I think with the current odds, I think you have to bet Edson Barboza, in my opinion. Next, we've got co-main event. We've got Cláudia Gadelha taking on Angie Hill. Women's strawweight fight, 115. Angie Hill becoming a bit of the Donald Cerrone of the women's division. She's just fighting all the time. Some say she's in career best form. Look, I probably have to agree with that. She probably is in career best form. She's won, I'm just having a look, I think it's like 5 in a row she's coming off now. But again, a bit like, not as bad as Marlon Vera, but I mean, she's had some pretty favourable matchups in that run. Well, 4 of her last 5. She lost to Yan, where I haven't really rewatched that fight back properly since it happened live, but I remember I took a bit of a stab at Angela Hill because I didn't think plus 200 was right, and I think there is an argument you could say that she nicked that fight. Before that, she beat Jodie Escobel, easy fight for her. After the Yan fight, she beat Carnelossi. She got that cut in the 3rd round. Interesting fight that was, because she started well. Carnelossi probably won round 2, so it's probably 1-1 going into round 3, so it was going to become a bit of a dogfight. And then since then she's beaten Hannah Cyphers, got a takedown, mounted her, just finished her on the floor, and then she's coming off last fight. I can't remember the Thai fighter she fought, but stand-up girl. But physicality just played a big part there, and the girl she fought is very clinch heavy, still very Muay Thai orientated, just not great at range yet, and Angela Hill was able to put her advantage home there with regards to her striking at range and take home the decision. So she's got a difficult stylistic matchup here potentially. She's had that run of strikers, like she's had 5 strikers in a row. Now Cláudia Gadelha, who, while she can strike and she can stand around and strike, her strength is her grappling, and she's a very good wrestler, and that's something Angela Hill has struggled with. The last time Angela Hill fought a wrestler was her fight versus Randa Marcos, which was just over a year ago now. So she's fought 6 times basically in the last year, Angela Hill. This will be her 7th fight. And just to add to that, there is a serious question mark for me in terms of burnout, because it is, some fighters it's really good for them to be active, but she is just reaching that point where, this is her 3rd fight this year already, and it can be difficult to have a fight camp, take some time off, go into another, you're kind of constantly in these camps. It is obviously different at the moment with what's going on, so maybe she's had a bit of time off and maybe she's going to be a bit refreshed going into this fight, but you do have to be careful in that sense that you don't suffer burnout. She is 35, so she's probably thinking that, why not just take these fights while I can? I'm getting up there in age now, she's getting paychecks. I don't know what kind of pay she's on, but that's probably part of it. It's another payday for her. I'm 35, I'm never going to be the champion, but why not kind of take over that Donald Cerrone mantle, which it's not done him any harm. He's he's at the end of his career now, but he's had a great career. He's picked up a lot of money with the bonuses. Obviously Hill isn't going to be picking up the bonuses left, right and centre, but she's still getting those paychecks, and she's picking up wins. So she's getting, remember how these guys are paid, they're paid a set amount and then they get the win bonus on top. So here against look, if Cláudia comes in, she does train with Mark Henry now. So the concern for me, if I was backing Cláudia, would be, does Cláudia now think she's a striker? Against Randa Marcos, she stood for 3 rounds. Now, she won the striking. Maybe she didn't feel she needed to mix in the wrestling. There is that argument. She didn't need to take it to the floor. She was winning the stand-up. Maybe she just wanted to try out her new tools. Didn't feel any threat standing. But she can't take that approach against Angela Hill. If she does, she will get out-volumed and lose a decision. We know Cláudia has gas tank issues. Angela Hill does slow down herself. But the difference is Angela Hill chucks out a very high volume, and she fights through fatigue very well, unlike Cláudia, who doesn't. But Angela Hill, as I said, she's 35. I don't think we're going to be seeing any new wrinkles with her in regards to her takedown defence or her grappling. And we saw a year ago she got absolutely destroyed by Randa Marcos. Randa got her down quickly, absolutely dominated her on the mat, just ran through her like a knife through butter. And that's a concern when you're taking on Cláudia Gadelha, who is a very good grappler, very good takedowns. She's got solid top control. Now, what I've noticed from doing tape is Angela Hill is generally pretty good, it seems. Like I said, she's not fought anyone on Gadelha's level, so it's a risk it won't work here. But when she's against the fence, she seems to be decent at getting up. And I do remember her fight in Invicta against Souza, who is a very good grappler, albeit she's very small, a lot smaller, less physical than Cláudia. She kept getting taken down, but she did keep getting back to her feet. And Souza's a very good grappler, but as I say, physicality difference here is huge, and Gadelha's a better grappler, I'm sure, as well. But she is decent enough at getting up against the fence. But I was looking at Cláudia's takedowns when I was doing tape, and a lot of the time she does rip you away from the fence. She does have you in the middle of the octagon, or at least away from the fence a lot of the times. And her takedowns are generally body lock takedowns. So you are normally against the fence, but she will prize you away from that fence when she hits the takedown. She's very physical. I do think she is a USADA victim. I don't think she's looked quite the same in the post-USADA days, but she is still physically very strong, and she still does take everyone down that she fights. I mean, she opted not to against Randa, but besides that, even in losing efforts, like against Nina Ansarov, she won round 1. Round 2, she just got the takedown too late. She got the takedown with about a minute and a half left, and it wasn't enough to outweigh the work Nina had done on the feet. And by round 3, started to slow down, as she does. We've seen it in a lot of her fights. We saw it against Carla Esparza, slowed down in that fight. So, but for me, Hill, I don't even know if Hill can shut her down in round 3. I just don't have faith in Hill's takedown defence. My main reservation, really more than anything here, is Cláudia coming in with a correct approach and just not trying to strike and being happy to just use her wrestling here. Because if she gets Angela Hill down and they're away from the fence, then I don't give Angela Hill much chance of getting up, and Angie does give her back trying to get up as well, and someone like Cláudia will take her back. Like I said, she's not really fought any great grapplers, Angela Hill. I mean, Randa Marcos is the last one, and before that you're going back to probably like the Ashley Yoder fight as the last, semi-competent grappler she's faced. She just hasn't really faced anyone like that in the UFC. This is going to be her first real grapple-heavy opponent. I bet Cláudia Gadelha blind here. I put £1,400 on her when the line, I think I missed the opening line. I caught -175. I'm wary of betting Cláudia because I remember betting her against Carla Esparza. I mean, she did have that injury because there was all that late money that came in. I've never seen a line move like it except for the Chinese fighter, I think it was Bang, when there was that dramatic movement day of the fight. But I'd never seen movement like it. The line shortened too. I mean, Gadelha was, I think, eventually she was looking like she was going to close around -300 or so, and it came all the way down to, I can't remember what it was now. I don't think it was far short of even money. Just tons of money was pouring in, and it turns out that the injury Gadelha had got leaked. But I just think stylistically, unless Gadelha comes out and just decides to strike, or just decides to strike for too long a period. I mean, the other thing with Hill is she just doesn't have any power on her shots. They're not impactful looking shots when she lands. A lot of the time it's hard to see what's landing with her as well, because she just doesn't land with any impact. So even if she's like out voluming Cláudia for a couple of minutes, even 3 minutes of a round, she gets taken down and gets dominated for that 2 minutes, will that outweigh the work Hill's done on the feet? Because Cláudia's not, she's not a mug on the feet. She's got decent striking while she's fresh, and when she throws with power. But the problem with Cláudia is she is lower volume, and she does slow down as the fight goes on, so she's highly likely to get outworked on the feet. But as long as Cláudia comes in with a sensible approach, and it is a wrestling heavy approach, I don't think the footwork of Hill is going to save her here. I think Cláudia can get her down, and can she get a submission possibly? But if not, I think she can rack up enough top control time to take a decision here. So I took -175. After tape, I said to myself, I'm not going to add. Just something about Cláudia. I just don't trust her. I get a bad feeling in my stomach betting her, but I'm not in love with the bet I put on, to be completely honest with you. Even though I got -175, I can just see her making me sweat for this money. So I definitely wouldn't play her now at -200. I said to members I'd probably tip her if we got her around the -160 area, but I don't think that's going to happen. The money's coming on Cláudia, so I will pick Cláudia here. I do think she wins this fight, but she needs to have a sensible approach. Main event, we've got Walt Harris taking on Alistair Overeem, heavyweight fight. We've got Walt Harris fighting for the first time since the very sad death of his stepdaughter. So it's a hard fight to really. I mean, look, it's a pass fight for me. I really want Walt Harris to win because of what he's been through. So I wouldn't have liked to have bet Overeem here anyway, but it's definitely a pass fight for me. I mean, from a betting perspective, I think the value is with Overeem. Walt is a -140 favourite here, but Walt Harris is a guy I just find hard to trust. Has he turned the corner in his MMA career is the question. I mean, he's got a 13-7 record. It is getting better because he is churning out more wins now. There was a point where he was looking at near enough a 50-50 record for the guy, but he's started to look better since, I think it was the Chase Sherman fight. He had that really frustrating fight with Shamil that he lost a split decision. It could have gone either way. It was a very close fight, but then I don't know, something seemed to change for him. He ripped through Chase Sherman and Cyril Asker. Then he took that very late notice fight against Verdum where he just got taken down and armbarred inside a minute. Then you had the Mark Godbeard disqualification where he was in complete control of the fight and froze that late head kick. Then he came back, he beat Daniel Spitz. He got a decision win over Orlovsky that was overturned, and then he took out Spivak and Olinek very quickly. But the problem for me is, if you look at Walt's record, if he doesn't get that quick win, some of these fights can turn into a bit of a kind of sparring contest. That is the worry for me here. And Overeem is not someone that's going to come and give him the fight he wants. We know what Overeem's new style is all about. He's gone into that Andrei Arlovsky kind of mould where he knows his chin isn't great anymore. He's been knocked out a lot. He's trying to preserve his chin, protect his chin. So, he doesn't want to get overly involved in exchanges. And he's definitely going to be taking that approach here against Walt because, Walt cracks, man. He's very dangerous. Can Overeem get him to the mat? You know, he's got them decent kind of trips he will use. He's got a solid top game. We've seen it against Stefan Struve. We saw it against Pavlovich. But if you can't get him down, I mean, it's 5 rounds for Walt Harris to land something. But, you know, as long as Walt doesn't fall into that trap of falling into like a sparring session, and someone like Overeem could frustrate him just by not engaging, staying long, trying to kind of hit and run. Oh, it's a hard fight to call, this one. I've not got any confidence in terms of betting. It's an easy pass for me. The over is set at 1.5, which is maybe the best bet on the fight for me, because Overeem isn't going to want to engage early. Like I said, he's not going to want to get into a brawl with Walt Harris. And Walt, you know, he's a patient guy. He can be very patient. And I think Overeem's going to maybe sucker him into that kind of fight. So for me personally, I think if there's any value, I would favour the over here rather than pick a side. I mean, I don't like Walt Harris as a favourite against Overeem, just because, I mean, it'd easily be Walt Harris his best win. And he's coming off them 2 emphatic KO wins, but I bet him against Spivak. Olinek I didn't, but I mean he caught them both straight off the bat. And as I've said on this podcast many times, people always get overvalued if they're coming off a quick KO win or a couple of quick KO wins. If that doesn't happen, what happens? Do we fall back into familiar territory with Walt, and it just become a frustrating fight where he can't catch Overeem? And I mean, how is Walt Harris mentally? I mean, I always say I put mental aspect aside for a fight. It's something you can't cap, you can't determine, and it's true here. But this is a case of, you know, in terms of his preparation and so forth, and where his head's at. I can't ever remember having a case of where someone's head just might not be in the game at all. You just don't know where he's at. He weighed in at 265 as well, which someone said is heavy for him. I'm just going to check Tapology. He is a bit heavier than normal. He normally is averaged anywhere between 249 to 258, and he's coming here at 264, which means he's cut weight for this by the looks of it. So I wonder how much he's cut. I wonder how much heavier he was than normal. So, you know, I think that's a sign that there is some kind of lack of preparation. Maybe it's just the current circumstances in the world. I don't know, but just betting Walt Harris as a favourite, it just makes me nervous. I mean, I get why people are betting him. They think he's going to come in and blast Reem, but if he doesn't do that, and Overeem isn't going to engage that fight early, he's not silly. And he's coming off another knockout loss as well in the dying second. So, I mean, Overeem isn't going to want to get knocked out again. He's had a lot of knockout losses. I mean, it's 14 now in his MMA career. So, I mean, there is a point where how much more can he take? But I don't see Walt Harris coming out and just going for the absolute jugular from the start. But who knows with where he's at mentally? He might just come out and just try and kill Overeem. So that kind of puts me off the over as well. But for me personally, if I had to make a bet, I would play the over here. I prefer that. I'm going to pick Overeem as well, just because he's the underdog. I don't like betting Walt Harris as a favourite. I don't trust him. I don't trust Overeem. I'm not suggesting you bet Overeem. If I had to make a bet here, I would, based on value, I would take Overeem. But I think if I had to play anything, it would be the over 1.5. So that wraps up the card, guys. We've got a 2-week break until the next card. 23rd has been cancelled. Next card is on the 30th. So card's not been announced yet. So hopefully that will be announced in the next few days, so we can start breaking down the cards. So good luck with your bets, everyone. I went 9-0 on predictions on Wednesday. It's the first time I've had a sweep. I've had a couple of, I've gone 10-1 and 11-1 or something like that a few times, but first sweep I've ever had. So I must have had the luck of the Irish on me for Wednesday. So let's see what we can do for this card. Hope you all can make some money. If you want to subscribe to the service, ProMMABetting.com is £195 for 12 months. I'll do a discount on Twitter, so keep an eye on the Twitter at Pro MMA Betting. And you also get live betting as well as pre-bets. We've got a private Discord channel. We've got over 120 members now. I freeze the chat during the fight, so you can only see me basically tipping a particular line. You hit the line, I freeze the chat between fights. There's great camaraderie on the chat, some characters on there. Everyone seems to get on that contributes in the chat, and there's quite a number that do now. So if you want to come over and make some money on pre-betting and live betting, come and join the service, guys. But good luck with your bets, and hopefully we can make some money before we have the week off next week. Over and out.